Jaylen Brown is a NBA superstar, formerly of the Boston Celtics and now the Philadelphia 76ers. And this is a person who has been on the side of Palestine since jump. Now, keep in mind, he got his contract prior to these statements, but he was making statements in favor of Palestine going back to the beginning of 2024. So he's been at it from the beginning. Colin, do you have that image? Pretty sure I sent you an image of Brown. Oh, I thought that I did. Do you not have it? Let me see if I can grab. Well, I want people to see this. Let me see. Got a nice little something I'm going to share with you guys in a minute. This just came across my feed as I was going for the pick. So, Jaylen Brown, as I mentioned, is an NBA superstar. And he is somebody who has been as outspoken as anybody when it comes to this particular issue for some time. And now a lot of people are looking around and asking themselves, why is it that the Boston Celtics basically sold him for pennies on the dollar to an in-division rival, their biggest rival. In fact, in the history of the NBA, for those who may or may not know, the biggest rival in the history of the Boston Celtics franchise is, I know everybody says it's the Lakers from a championship perspective, yes, but in terms of just a historical in-conference, in-division opponent, there is no greater opponent that they've ever had than the Philadelphia 76ers. And that's who they traded him to for nothing. So that's very strange in itself. But as you can see here, highest paid NBA player in history, Jaylen Brown wears free Gaza bracelet in solidarity. And again, as I said, this is going back a ways back, 2.5 years. So he was on it from the beginning, and apparently Jaylen is also a Muslim. So why do I bring this up? There apparently is more than what meets the eye in terms of why Jaylen Brown was traded. Here's some of the reasoning behind it.
Is lying to you about the Jaylen Brown trade. It wasn't salary cap or team drama. It's actually something ESPN will never mention. Boston's ownership are some of the biggest war profiteers on planet Earth. When an NBA athlete tears their Achilles, their on-court value drops substantially. Only 2 players, Kevin Durant and Dominique Wilkins, ever returned to the same form. Think about it. Do you really believe a $6 billion franchise is going to gamble their entire future on a shredded Achilles because of a Twitch stream?
Was Jaylen Brown acting like Antonio behind the scenes? Like, am I missing something?
Even JB said it after the trade.
I definitely think there's more to it.
He knows he can't spill the full story, so I will. It only starts to make sense when you realize that the people writing his checks are in a boardroom full of military contractors.
Now, if you have the face of your franchise making statements to the effect of, I am not in favor of the war machine that you are so generously benefiting from, that's a big problem, especially when you're the most recognizable face of the franchise. You're a finals MVP. It's very hard to sweep these things under the rug. If this is some G League player, if this is some bench rider, they can just cast them away and no one would be able to say or determine exactly why that was the case. But in the case of Jaylen Brown, there's no hiding this one. And the NBA's ownership is completely Zionist, almost universally across the board. So this, again, should not come as any surprise.
And let's look at the receipts. And by the way, if you like to learn about the dirty money that actually makes sports move, follow Blood in the Arena. First of all, Jaylen Brown is Muslim, and he has been very actively pro-Palestine and anti-war. Meanwhile, his old bosses make the war machine hum. First of all, there's Aditya Mittal, who's the CEO of ArcelorMittal, which produces the armored steel used for combat vehicles in global war zones. Sixth Street Partners just used their tech company Boomi to push a $100 million buyout to an active duty IDF major who was very recently on the front lines in Gaza. Then you've got Bill Chisholm, who founded private equity firm STG, which invests in major military and cybersecurity contractors like Govini, Red Seal, Trellix, and Skyhigh. That's 4 companies. You've also got Israel simps like Stephen A. stoking the fire.
I want to remind people of why I can't stand Stephen A. Smith, not just because he's a total hack and really doesn't know shit about Shinola when it comes to basketball. He's just a blowhard who unfortunately speaks to the lowest common denominators, especially in the Black community. His "I'm a brother" type of language doesn't do any service to anybody. But it's made him a very rich man because he walks the corporate line. He always has. And all the controversy the other day about him dissing on the Lakers because 3 of their top players are white, I don't give a shit about that shit. I care about this. I care about Stephen A. Smith constantly talking about how much he loves Israel. I got a big fucking problem with that. And so should everybody else. So you can understand what it means to speak out on issues that really matter. And make no mistake, Stephen A. Smith has been an attack dog against Jaylen Brown. Hard. Do you wonder why? I don't. Now it's more clear than ever. And I often wondered what was the case. Stephen A. Smith recently went on a tirade of a rant against Zoran Mamdani and the 3 congressional representatives who he just helped get elected, saying how insane they are and that they have no business being on Capitol Hill. The only type of person who talks that way is somebody who's a corporate whore that's bought. And that is exactly who Stephen A. Smith is and always will be. And he is a failed basketball player who never amounted to shit. He thinks he's something special, but in reality, he's nothing. And his podcast is an even bigger joke. Don't bother listening to it. You're not missing anything.
Dragging JB through the mud by making up fake stories and drama to help protect the financial interests of his pay daddies as well.
I am so surprised at this return for Jaylen Brown. He never did anything that we could see that warranted the Celtics to get rid of him in this fashion.
So if you're confused by this trade, it's because your scope is too small. Zoom out and look at the bigger picture of all the ownership investments. For a boardroom full of war profiteers, a quiet max player on crutches is infinitely safer than a healthy, outspoken rebel with the microphone.
Couldn't have said it better. Could not have said it better. That is why these stories matter. And that is why, whether it is Kyrie Irving or Jaylen Brown, they try to destroy these men. But that's another element of the revolution that's happening right now because politics is seeping into everything. And as Jen has often said, Trump was going to accelerate the revolution. It was inevitably going to be pushed into hyperdrive once he became the face of American politics. Oh, somebody's got to get that for us. Colin, Jen, find out about the Stephen. We can definitely add the Stephen A. Smith body bag video. Are you implying that he should be in a body bag? I'm just saying. Now, believe it or not, there's actually a two-parter to this. Here we go.
Wasn't traded because of bad blood with the team, but because the owner of the Celtics doesn't really own the Celtics. Jaylen is the latest victim of private equity in pro sports, and I promise you, it's only getting worse from here. Last year, when the Celtics sold to Bill Chisholm and his PE backers for $6.1 billion, we all kind of saw this coming. The deal was actually illegal from the jump. Here's my friend June Lee to explain.
Sixth Street puts in more money than Chisholm, a structure that violated the NBA's rules on how much private equity can own for an NBA team. Despite that, the Celtics publicly announced the sale anyway, with Chisholm as the lead buyer. That public announcement helped Chisholm Chisholm raised money from other investors, allowing him to reduce 6th Street's percentage after the fact.
Essentially, Bill is more puppet than owner. 6th Street has the real power, which allows him to run the standard PE playbook. Think about the Celtics like Jersey Mike's, which also sold to private equity. Over the last few
I cannot begin to tell you how absolutely disgusting it is to hear that Jersey Mike's sold out to private equity, because I know who Mike is. Jersey Mike's is based in, well, it was based in Belmar, New Jersey, which is about 30 minutes from where I grew up. This is a Jersey Shore staple for, well, since 1956, 70 years. Why would you sell out to private equity? Why would you just not give your franchisees the opportunity to buy the franchises from you? Why would you do it this way? If you want to talk about something that truly is destroying our country, private equity, as much as anything, is what has destroyed our economy. And who knows if private equity would have even been possible if not for the removal of Glass-Steagall back in 1999. Now it's on a whole other level because you can't do community banking anymore. Everything's commercial. So, is it really surprising?
sold to private equity. Over the last few years, we all noticed the subs have a little bit less meat, but they're still good enough to buy. That's the idea behind the Jaylen Brown trade. Sure, he's a superstar in the middle of his prime, but he's expensive and only getting more expensive on his next contract. Will the team be as good with Paul George? Of course not, but they'll still be competitive in the East, and the fans are still going to watch. Really, that's the saddest part. Say what you want about them, but Boston has some of the most passionate fans in the world. Watching these two groups exploit their loyalty is devastating. Perhaps the only thing more depressing is when you learn that 6th Street also owns 10% of the Spurs. How this is legal, I have no idea, but unfortunately, we're just getting started here. PE money, 6th Street also owns 10% of the Spurs.
Well, Jen, there goes that one. Sorry.
How this is legal, I have no idea, but unfortunately, we're just getting started here. PE money is flowing into sports faster than ever before, and my prediction is we'll see many more of these moves over the next decade. I'm from Michael Smith, and that's my take.
So you can see why there's multiple layers to why Jaylen Brown was removed from the Celtics. And this is why rooting for sports teams is basically dead in many ways, because first of all, there's no loyalty anymore. That's over. And private equity has completely sank its teeth into another part of society that should have been off limits. But again, there is no end. There is no limit. There is nowhere they will not go in order to basically suck the system dry until it's no more.